Afternoon, everyone. My name's Ben Flynn and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Geelong Chamber of Commerce. We're really pleased today to have over 150 of you with us, and it's our first webinar in a series to give you the information you need and practical advice on how to handle the coronavirus at a business level. We've got some great guests with us today, and I'll introduce them shortly. But certainly, I just want to reinforce that this is about the Chamber being in your corner and giving you everything you need to get you through. We've spoken to a lot of people in the business community, and people are worried. That's true. But getting the information out there hopefully reduces people's anxiety and gets people thinking about how they can work differently, how they can be better and innovate so that they come out at the other end stronger and better. Today, we're joined by a really talented bunch. We're joined by Nick Klein, Principal Partner at LBW Business and Wealth Advisors. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Ben.
Dr. John Stekelenburg, prominent local GP and former Chair of Barwon Health. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Ben.
Cameron McBurney, owner of Xtreme Technology. Welcome, Cam.
Thanks, Ben.
Rachel Patterson, Sales Manager at K-Rock and Bay FM. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks a lot.
Tom Page from the Victorian Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks,
Welcome,
Ben.
Tom.
Happy to be here.
And Amir Qutub, owner of Enterprise Monkey. Welcome, Amir.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a range of questions I'd like to ask our panellists. Nick from LBW, you're an accountant, Nick. Can you tell us how important is it for businesses to cut costs during this crisis?
Look, it's important, Ben, but I wouldn't jump blindly to just cutting and slashing all of the costs that your business incurs to run normally to get through this pandemic that we're experiencing. What people really need to do is step back, take a breath, have a look at all of the inputs into their business and to work out, for the time being at least, which ones are surplus to their needs and which ones they need to run, so their core expenses. But there's a lot of information out there about what packages, stimulus packages, what things the ATO are putting out, and obviously, and you need to talk to your advisors to get the best information possible to make sure that you take advantage of all of those. So if we talk about the stimulus one to start off with, which has been out now for a few days, for business particularly, there's probably about the $25,000 one, which again, you can go and research that one. It's about pay-as-you-go withheld. It's not a cash deposit into your bank, but it is a reduction in your outgoings, so it kind of works the same in that regard. There's some benefits there in terms of if you're an apprentice employer, and there are some thresholds around that as well. And then for individuals, there's the $750 one. So those things you really need to be across and continually get the information in and talk to the right people about what is the best way to access those. From the ATO's perspective, is they've come out in a speech probably 5 or 6 days ago, and this hasn't really taken up any limelight in any of the media yet at this stage. But what Chris Jordan, the Commissioner of Taxation, has indicated is that there's quite a few concessions that they're willing to grant for small business. And those things relate to things like you can defer up to 4 months for the payment of certain obligations, whether it be a BAS or an income tax. They're going to allow you to jump from quarterly reporting to monthly reporting to better take advantage of refunds that you might be expecting in the short term rather than wait that 3-month time frame. There's also an allowance too for the March BAS to come up is to vary your income tax instalment, which is like the old provisional tax, down to 0. And if you do that, you can also go back and revise your September and December instalments down to 0 and get those back into your business account. Bearing in mind, obviously, that that's not a waiver of tax, that's just a deferral. At the end of the day, when you do your 2020 tax, that will still be an obligation, but they're just allowing you to put that back into your bank to try and help get through this time that they're in.
And do businesses need to request of the ATO some of these services?
Absolutely. These are not a lay down misère. You have to actually ring the ATO, and the best person to do that, again, is your accountant or advisor, because they deal with the tax office all the time. They know what words to say and how to better get it across. But again, just bear in mind that they are they're not waivers, they're only deferring. So, but it does give you some breathing space to do that.
And the government's 50% reduction, $25,000 stimulus, in my mind, that occurs automatically.
That does. So, and it depends on what you lodge on your BAS at the end of the day. So it's from January through to June only. It's only a 6-month period, whereas the apprentice incentive is from January through to September. So that's a bit longer, and that's $7,000 per apprentice per quarter. But with the $25,000 one, is they'll do it based on what you lodge. So if you lodge a BAS that has $25,000 worth of pay-as-you-go withholding in March and then also in June, effectively it'll make out so that you will get the full 25. Any business though will get a minimum of $2,000, but they'll work that out for you. It'll just happen. So,
thank you, Nick. I'll come back to you.
Yep.
Cam McBurney from Xtreme Technology. Now, Cam, you've been telling me about how busy your staff are preparing people to work remotely. What are the steps involved in that?
I think the most important thing is security, is to make sure that the connection is secure and protected. As we're all aware that hacks, these sort of periods of turmoil and unrest are a hacker's breakfast. They're looking at ways now to get into our network. So security is the major thing. Two-factor authentication, logging into your business, and also having up-to-date antiviruses on all your devices. We've all been working from home in one way, shape or form for probably the last 10 years. This is a massive uptake that we're going through at the moment, and a massive requirement for mobile devices to do that, because not all houses apparently have laptops or desktops. So people have been surviving off iPads for years, and all of a sudden they need a device in which to log into their business.
Tom, you're joining us from the Victorian Chamber of Commerce. No doubt the phones are ringing hot in your industrial relations part of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been running hot for the last week or so, last couple of weeks actually, and there's no sign of it stopping anytime soon.
And what advice can you provide on managing staff leave, and what the conversations you've been having with your members for this forthcoming period?
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of questions. Initially, it was about personal leave and whether employees could take it. Certainly, if somebody is ill or injured, they're unfit to perform their role, they can take personal leave. If it's less a case of the employee being ill or injured and more a case of them needing to isolate, the Act doesn't necessarily allow an employee to take personal leave under those circumstances. So I guess it's up to the employer to speak to the individual about how to best deal with that. Taking annual leave, taking long service leave, taking unpaid leave, all of those sorts of things are possible avenues to go down. More recently, we've been getting a lot of questions about the stand down provisions under the Act, where you can stand an employee down without pay. The difference is the Act clearly states that an employee can be stood down due to a stoppage of work for any cause outside of the employer's control, or a cause for which the employer cannot reasonably be held responsible. The difficulty is those sorts of provisions were created for circumstances where it's not so much to do with less customers or less work, and it's more to do with not being able to physically attend the workplace. So if the government, increases its scrutiny and says, all right, all businesses in the city must close down, then that's definitely a stoppage of work outside of the employer's control. And if the employer can't reasonably redeploy certain employees, then under those circumstances, employees could be stood down without pay. But we've been getting a lot of questions about that. And when a lot of employers find out that they can't actually stand down employees without pay, then naturally the question regarding redundancy arises, and whether employees should be dismissed or whether positions should be made redundant. From that point on, it's up to the employer to, speak openly with employees, but looking at creative solutions. So can we reduce the hours that we're working? Can we reduce the days that we're working, so that maybe we won't have as many people losing their jobs, but people might be working a little bit less or earning a little bit less, period.
That's one of the key takeouts on, and we will come back to this. We've got plenty of time, but it's all through conversation and negotiation with your teams, isn't it? And being fair as an employer, understanding the situation, a little bit of give and take on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's really important. You know, one of the key messages is everyone's in this together. You know, and so I think the most important thing for employers to do is continue to communicate with employees and continue to keep them informed of what's going on. Don't tell employees that you have all the answers, because you don't. But keep those communication channels open.
Terrific. Now, John Stekelenburg, practically speaking, how can viruses be transmitted at work? Are you likely to catch it at work?
So Ben, I think you can get it at work as well as you can get it in the community. And basically the virus is spread by someone coughing on you, or someone has coughed or sneezed and there's droplets, and you touch those, and then you put your hand on your face and you get the virus will then go up your nose and into your respiratory system. So basically, if you don't touch your face, and if you social distance, if someone has a virus, whether it be a cold virus or coronavirus, but it's just a general thing, that it's unlikely you're going to catch the virus from them. So where I work now, so everyone who comes into my room sits more than 1.5 metres away from me. Even so, we just make that a blanket rule for people, no matter what their problems are. And also that if we have respiratory problems, well, we see everyone now who's got a respiratory problem in the one room at the back of the surgery, go from the car park into that room and back outside. So what we have to do at work, and it's not only about us. We're really in it to protect the elderly and the vulnerable. And so our aim is to flatten the curve, so fewer of us get the virus to start off with, so that we can protect those more vulnerable. So yeah, so it's basically people who are going to get the virus at the moment. So very few people have actually caught it in Victoria. Most of them have imported it from overseas.
Very good. Now, Amir, you're the owner of Enterprise Monkey, and you've developed a business continuity step-by-step plan. Can you take us through just quickly what the steps are involved in that?
Sure, absolutely. So the reason we actually developed this plan was we have been working remotely for a long time now. We have got an office in Dubai and Delhi and Kuala Lumpur. And so we actually had to shut down those offices due to the coronavirus, but we were able to do it in a split second, because we are sort of always ready for people to work from home. And then when we told this to our clients, one of them in education sector, they said, "Oh, it might probably implement to you, but might not implement for our organization." So we worked with them to implement it for them, and so on. So we thought of developing a step-by-step action plan from there in terms of what we followed and what we chose to do in our organization. It's pretty simple. The first step is to actually audit your current activities and their impact on your business, to identify the business criticality. So we need to identify what are the business critical activities that we are doing in our business. For example, if generating quote is critical to your business, that could be one of your activity. Then the second thing that we need to identify is what are the systems that we are using to manage those activities. For example, if you're using an on-prem MyOps system, that's your current system. The third thing that we identify over there is, okay, how can I actually take this system and work remotely through this system? And if the answer is no, that's your gap that you are identifying. From there, you actually develop the plan. So you look for the tools that could replace those systems. And when you have clubbed all of these activities together, you will have a very clear set of requirements of what you need to work remotely. So these are your activity-based systems that you need to have in place. Secondly, you would need some fundamental systems that you need to have in place. So there are 4 things that you need to have in place to work remotely and continue your business. First is communication. Now, when we talk about communication, we generally ignore the importance of communication, because when we are in office, we are talking to each other, we are going to each other's desk, but it's very difficult when you are working remote. So that's why having a proper effective communication, which is not just video calls, more than that, is pretty important. A tool like Slack, and there are multiple others like Microsoft Teams, are good for that. The second is meetings. So you know about meetings, and most of you are already using like Google Hangouts, Skype, or Zoom. The third thing is documentation management. So all your information needs to be online for everyone to work remotely and properly. So Dropbox, Google Drive, again, Microsoft SharePoint, a lot of options over there. And the fourth thing, which is again pretty important, is project management. Now, you might not need a project management system while you're working on-prem, because you would be allocating tasks on the go. But when you are away, it's extremely difficult to manage tasks of your team. So Rachel mentioned that she's using Trello for project management. It's a very simple tool, can apply to all of the businesses. Again, there are plenty of out there. I'm not recommending a particular tool, but something as simple that allows you to track who's doing what and just get a bit of reports on it and assign tasks to people.
Now, Rachel, you're the sales manager at K-Rock, and most of K-Rock have been sent home.
Yes, we're almost all of us working from home now.
And you're managing a sales team from home. How's that going for you?
Yeah, so look, it's interesting. I mean, a really important part of our day is we have a sales meeting every day. So we start the day with, I suppose, conversations that we're having. For us at the moment, making sure that we're talking to every single one of our clients is absolutely critical. Because obviously what we can now communicate on air about clients could potentially, be the difference to their business sort of, coming through this flying. So what I'm doing is we're still doing our morning sales meetings. So again, as Amir said, we're using Trello for workflow, but we're using Google Hangouts to actually run the meeting. We then, so at the start of the day, we're doing a sales meeting based on sort of, what our goals are and, who we're going to speak to for the day. And then at the end of the day, that's where we actually have a bit of a wrap as well. So we've scheduled an extra sales meeting, because for me, it's keeping the guys up and about, they're having some really difficult conversations with, so many clients that we love. Loads of them are really positive, but some of them, they're really needing a little bit of direction as well. So end of the day, what are the challenges? What are we doing? And also bringing into that some really good feel-good things, I suppose, so that this new normal that we are having at the moment of working from home, they've still got routine and they've still got structure and things that they're familiar with. We've been running a campaign locally called Store with a Door. So Store with a Door is something that we've been running since January. And that's basically where we are encouraging people to really think about where they're putting their money and to think before you click. So that started off in January. And what we're now doing is we're now evolving that message based on kind of what's happening daily. And look, as I was saying before, one of the benefits we have is that radio can be immediate, so we can implement things instantly. So we're now looking at, hey, how can we help small business? Running shopping tips, on air. We've just put out a Facebook post online, which is who's open. So that's, also then getting shout outs on air to people that register their business is open and what are they offering at this time. I feel like that's going to be so critically important for us, is to be able to, I suppose, tell people where they can go and what they can do, because there is a little bit of uncertainty. And I feel so, I suppose, proud of the business that I'm in at the moment, and that's that we can really, I suppose, guide people and give them some really sort of solid practical knowledge.
Very good. One of the questions from the audience, Tom, is can employees apply for long service leave to take if they haven't got any pay up their sleeve?
Oh, they absolutely can. Long service leave is generally taken by agreement, and if employees are keen to take long service leave and they qualify and they've accrued a sufficient amount, they absolutely can. If the employee hasn't qualified, the employer can...
What's qualified, Tom?
So it differs from state to state, but certainly in Victoria, you used to have to serve 10 years before you could take it. It was pro rata after 7. There's recently been a change so that you can take it after 7 years service. But if, for example, an employee had worked there for 5 years, there's nothing to stop an employer from making a decision to allow the employee to take whatever they've accrued up to that point, even though they don't necessarily qualify for it at that stage.
Now, Nick, you mentioned that cutting cost isn't necessarily the number one focus for businesses at the moment, but there are ways that businesses can negotiate to reduce some of their costs. For example, with landlords and trying to get sort of rent hiatuses during this period. Is that something you'd agree with?
Oh, absolutely. We've got quite a few clients who have been in touch with us already, who are property owners, but whether it be commercial or residential for that matter. And their agents have been in contact with them to just start the process to think about possibly giving those rent-free holidays or reduced rent periods or whatever it can amount to, just to have security of tenant, probably, so that the longer-term outlook rather than the short-term one. And a lot of our clients are, I'm not sure happy is the right word, but they're okay to discuss and manage that on a case-by-case basis with their tenants. So absolutely, that's something that should be considered as part of your budgeting. And I suppose that goes back to the first question as well, is if you don't have a budget now for the balance of this year and possibly next year, is seriously look at that. If you do have one, you really need to sit down and reforecast how that's going to look, about how you can manage different sources of income, different channels of distribution, different products, different markets, reducing or managing your cost or consolidating your staff or anything like that. It's a fairly large task to do. This is for everybody, and there won't be anyone who's not affected in this. This will actually provide at some point a really good opportunity to stop, take a breath, have a look at your business, and really see what you can do to survive, but also to do much better post the pandemic.
Even IT companies are having difficulty. Is that the case, and what kind of products are you customers requiring at the moment?
Yeah, Ben, I think the laptops become the electronic equivalent of toilet paper. Everybody wants them and everybody's grabbing as many as they can. The issue we have is that most time we see a bit of a drop in imports around Chinese New Year, and of course that extended. So most of the stuff from mainland China is coming in dribs and drabs and being obviously held on the docks for quarantine. There are others from Taiwan and other countries, but certainly not enough to make up with the demand at the moment as people try and move to mobile devices and work from home. So your laptops are your gold item at the moment. Everybody wants one to work from home to get their logins created. Desktops are still in supply, and monitors are still in supply as well. So, but the big shortage is the laptop devices. Again, everybody's wanting. We've got clients that are buying 20, 30 at a time for their businesses. So it's been a real struggle to try and get supply for them to get them so they can actually maintain their teams remotely.
If everyone's working remotely, will there be challenges with our internet service providers?
Well, I did read an article on that, and they were talking in relation to the internet, the internet usage increasing by about 25% during the working day. But they also analysed that against our normal streaming habits after 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the peak occurs. And they're saying, realistically, what's going to happen is we're going to have an increase, but it's not something that can't be handled. Is what the article read. I mean, we all know the internet can be a little bit fussy in places, and certainly some places it's impossible to work from home because you just don't have a stable connection. But where you have a connection, I don't think that connection will certainly suffer through this.
Yeah.
I think we'll face a bigger challenge if there's a complete lockdown and the students are not going to schools and universities. Then you'll see a lot of internet usage in terms of gaming and Netflix that will compromise on the internet bandwidth a bit. Just need to be mindful of that.
Very good. Now, Tom, what can employers, with everyone working from home and with the possibility of kids being at home as well, what can employers reasonably expect as output from employees during this time over a workday?
Well, it's very difficult, and obviously the situation's different for everyone as to whether there's anyone else in the house who can look over the kids. But obviously, there's a very big difference between actually performing your core function and looking after your children. Obviously, employers want to be flexible in the circumstances, but if, say for example, the schools do shut down, or if there are young kids at home, employers should be having discussions with their employees, with these working parents, about what can you practically do in the circumstances. And it's going to be different for everyone, but just because someone has just because someone might be looking after kids it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to do their role or that they should be, being paid 7.25 or 7.6 hours a day if they're not able to actually work those core hours. So that's the difficulty.
So Tom, our business, we're probably a bit fortunate in terms of we are able to work from home without a lot of disruption. But we're talking to our staff also who will have kids, and I know my two kids are now out of school as of next week, which is a week early, which is Cardinia and Matthew Flynn have also said to consider not sending your children to school. So what we're saying to our staff is that where the stuff that you need to do is not sensitive to actually interacting with everybody else, is pick your own hours. That also helps them with bandwidth for when they're entering into our server to do the work as well. So it kind of spreads the load a little bit, and it gives them more flexibility to do it when it suits them rather than within that 8:30 to 5 o'clock time frame, which is traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that's a possibility, then that's fantastic. Employers should definitely look at those options, but I would recommend that employers also look at the enterprise agreement, look at the award, look at the contract, whatever's in place, because you don't want to be allowing people to work at nights if, according to the award, that's outside the spread of ordinary hours and they're entitled to overtime. So absolutely, if you can get that flexibility, it's fantastic. But I'd definitely recommend employers just check the award or seek some advice as to what is possible, even if the employee agrees. That there are some risks associated with that.
Yep.
Now, John, when do you expect the peak to occur, or is that something we can't even pick?
But obviously there's lots of clever epidemiologists and scientists and so on out there who are predicting. But if you look at it from overseas, it's 60 days. So you'd be looking at it from 2 months from now. But that's a wild guess. And the thing is that because Australia's sort of got a hybrid model of between Singapore and South Korea of, containment and then flattening the curve, it is, you would assume that we would be somewhere between those two countries. I think one of the things that people, they're quite fearful that this epidemic is, going to kill their kids and kill them and so on. And the reality is that for the majority of people, this is a 1 to 2 week illness, which is not that severe. Okay, for a small proportion of people, it's a severe illness, and for an even smaller proportion of people, it's catastrophic. But for normal, healthy people, this is not that severe. Say, well, I should be able to do this or do that, but really there are clever people out there, and it's low release the virus, elderly and vulnerable people.
So I think, John, from a business perspective, is they can expect this to be somewhere around a 6-month ties, rethink how they do things, and just sort of knuckle down, really.
Yeah, I reckon there'll be major contours and then minor containment for another 2 or 3 months, where we'll slowly get back out into the normal. And a lot of it depends on vaccines and so on, but it doesn't really look like there'll be a vaccine around until, between probably close to the end of the year. So we can't rely on a vaccine, and there's certainly not, it's unlikely to be a cure or a treatment, because it is just a virus and there doesn't seem to be anything that makes a significant difference. So yeah, we've just all got to be patient, and I guess, you can't really plan for what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months' time, because it's largely unknown. But we'll be better off than places like Italy and Spain and France and the US, because at least we've got the people who are leading the country health-wise and politically-wise who have really taken it on board and have done not extreme measures, but significant measures which seem to be already having some long-term benefit for us all. I feel sorry for people who have just got a normal cold, and a lot of these people, they work for employers who are telling them you've got to go to the doctor to get a clearance to come back to work. Now, if you haven't been in contact for a reasonable amount of time with someone who's got active coronavirus, not if they had it 1 week before or they had it 1 week later, but active coronavirus, or you haven't come overseas, what can your GP say other than that it is unlikely that you have it? You don't qualify for testing, because to be able to be tested for it, you need to have travelled from overseas or been in contact with someone with coronavirus, or actually have, symptoms of the coronavirus. So a lot of people are going to their doctor, and really it's not productive, and they'd be better off doing other things. And so we sit here and we run a clinic, believe it or not, just to handle people like these people whose employers expect them to come to us for us to say that they don't have coronavirus, when it's really just a simple 2 questions. Ask them if they've been overseas, if they've been in contact with anyone with coronavirus, and if it hasn't been in the last couple of weeks, it is very, very unlikely that they have coronavirus, and they probably have a normal cold, and they can just go back to work. I don't think they need a doctor to sign them off.
Thank you, John. Now, Amir, out of everything, there's opportunity. Do you think this challenge will better prepare us for the kind of work we'll be doing in the future remotely?
Well, absolutely. And look, this is a great opportunity for businesses to, first of all, rethink their activities and the processes, and do a bit of audit and understand what is adding the most efficiently to a more remote working environment, or just a more optimized environment. It applies to manufacturing organizations or retail organizations too as well. Then what they would realize it is, just by doing this activity, their performance, their efficiency would significantly increase. The staff satisfaction would increase significantly as well. So you would most likely see that when the pandemic ends, and I hope it ends soon, most businesses will continue to follow these steps and the new activities that they had in place.
Yeah. And Rachel, whilst your team are busy sort of contacting all of your clients and talking through and being supportive via your campaigns on the radio, is there any of those jobs that you've kind of shelved in the past that are now getting the dust blown off them? And you know, certainly at the Chamber, we're looking to update collateral and develop content for our website and look at some of the agreements, and some of those jobs have all put off. Is that the same case at K-Rock?
It couldn't be more so. It's actually funny. I was laughing to my GM today. I was saying I've had the most productive 3 days than I think I've had in almost the whole year to date. So we're certainly getting, a lot of more planning done. Less travel time obviously means, more calls. So I'm actually finding that, that my team is almost being more productive at the moment than we have in the past. So taking that opportunity as a silver lining. I'll explain one of the other interesting things that we are doing, I suppose, and having this reflective time is really trying to keep morale and motivation up with our teams. So I'm just looking at ways that we can inject a little bit of fun into the day. So we've got something tomorrow, bring your pet to work day. So our morning, our morning Google Hangout hookup, everyone's going to have their pet there so they can be part of the sales meeting. And other things like virtual high fives. So obviously we can't high five, in person, be able to do the virtual high five to just really, I suppose, celebrate our wins and keep people going. Because I think it's that communicating the challenges that you're having and really celebrating those wins and celebrating those good news stories, celebrating those clients that are, really evolving really fast and able to kind of take this opportunity or take this as an opportunity. It's making sure that we're sort of doing that.
Yeah, and likewise, for any individuals who are working from home, they should certainly be setting reminders to get up at once an hour and stretch and walk around the table or whatever it may be. Make sure that you're setting aside time to call your colleagues, because for some people it will be a very isolating experience. So it's important that if people are working from home, that they continue to have that support and like you said, still have some fun, still break things up a little bit, so that people can continue to work productively and collaboratively.
The best technique that we've found for that is really making sure that we schedule our day. So we have a really structured day. So for us, it's sales meetings at the start and the end of the day, but scheduling breaks, as you're saying, getting up, stretching, rewarding yourself, going for a quick walk. Any of those, I suppose, types of measures, making sure that you're sitting at a desk, you're not sort of slumped back on the couch. And yeah, just that communication. I'm finding that my team at the moment is kind of rising up and kind of being that kind of knight in shining armor to sort of take this on. So it's quite encouraging to see.
The other thing to also just be aware of, if you are looking at your core expenses, your costs, what your outgoings are, is the banks have all undertaken to provide some concessions as well. So Westpac have now come out publicly and said that they will do certain things like defer payments on business loans for up to 3 months, I think it is, interest-free periods on some business loans, and maybe the credit card deferring payments on those without penalty interest rates. So also, but again, that won't be automatic. So you really need to get in front of them to make sure that you can take advantage of all of those to minimise your outgoings over the next 4 to 6 months.
Excellent. There's a question from Mandy, and Mandy asked that she's the owner of Eye Gallery Optometry Practices, and being a health-related retail business, not possible to work from home because we perform eye testing, contact lens fitting, and eye health checks. And this in turn requires making glasses, sunglasses, and contact lenses. So I'll probably put this question out to the panel and see what are their thoughts about a business which is heavily based on retail and requires that one-on-one contact. What can they do in this scenario?
I think in relation to these sorts of businesses, and again, as we talked about earlier, you really need to sit back and have a look at how you deliver your product. So it may be that, as John does with his potential coronavirus patients, is to segregate them and to see them separately, one-on-one, without passing through common space. Is with this sort of thing, it is maybe, again, your infrastructure allowing, that you do start to pass too much, continually sanitize and wipe down surfaces where the virus may live. And from what we understand, it's there for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours on inanimate objects. So you've really got to sit back and just really think. It might mean that you can see a little bit less in terms of numbers for customers coming through. But I'm sure that, again, with people still going outside, that they can manage to get to a premises as long as the contact with other people is limited.
Yeah.
Mandy, I think you have to screen people. So you have to say, if you have a cold, don't come. And once again, it's the 2-week rule if you've come from overseas, if you've been in contact with someone's coronavirus. So if you screen those people out of your business, then you really are back to the same risk for your own self that you had, 6 months ago. And they're obviously, being an optometrist, you're at risk of people coughing on you. But then again, if you screen them out, well, you're at no more risk than it was 6 months ago.
Yeah. And I think this is the challenge for all the businesses that have got contact. So I've seen challenges, people, massage therapists posting about it as well. My wife is a dentist. Right now she's practicing, but then she has to screen her patients pretty particularly as well. So it's as John sort of mentioned, that it's more about having that screening, and probably about communicating to your customers as well. It's extremely important at this point of time. Does anyone in the panel want to throw a bit of light on the communication? Because communicating to your customers and having that customer confidence is extremely important at the moment.
That's something that I'd be interested to talk to, actually, because obviously what we do in radio is we communicate a business proposition to the public, and this is where what we're doing with each of our clients on an individual basis is looking at what are the opportunities now for them and how do we need to communicate that. So obviously it's looking at what proportion of their business can be done online, making sure we've got really, really clear path to purchase opportunities so that people can actually find them really easily online, then that they've got the information that the clients are, or their customers are looking for when they do find them online. And also then making sure that, I suppose, what we're communicating through radio, it's really, I suppose, talking to that opportunity. One of the things that we're really mindful of, with our clients is that what we've seen in the past is in previous economic recessions or in really tough times, is those businesses that are able to keep a voice and keep operating and just find a way to go, even on a limited capacity or in a slightly different way, as those businesses that actually come out a lot stronger at the other end. So it's really encouraging to hear what the panel's saying here about, business is finding a way just to, cut in certain areas, but obviously, try not to lay people off completely. We say the same with, our advertisers. A lot of our advertisers, some of them are cutting back, some of them are actually ramping up based on the type of business that it is. But it's really, I suppose, looking at that unique situation, ways in which we can help.
What would your greatest couple of tips or takeaways for businesses be, Nick?
I think first and foremost is you really need to look at doing a budget and to see where you can reasonably think things will end up. And within that, then you can start talking about deferring payments to the ATO, talking to your banks about some of the concessions that they're, if not offering, will about to offer. We expect payroll tax concessions to come through from State Revenue Office, and then also just really talking to your staff to make sure that they're aware and keeping the public aware of what you're doing as well. Like I said, if you're open, they don't know you're open, they won't come. So, but then also just really looking at how you sell things. Is there a different market? Is there a different way to provide to the market? Can you provide your product a different way? There's a lot to think about, and the more people you speak to, the better off you'll be.
And I think it's okay to proactively sell during this period, isn't it?
Absolutely, yep. And you can actually, and as we said at the start, this is the new normal, and it will continue past the pandemic. So you could learn quite a lot about how your business can develop and evolve and be agile to deal with stuff like that, and to have a different presence in the market post the pandemic.
And Cameron from Xtreme Technology, any tips and advice that you can ask people to take away?
I think, again, I'm more sort of on the security side of it. I think during these sorts of times of high stress and high uncertainty, there's hackers and there's people that'll be sending you text messages, they'll be sending you emails, they'll be trying to represent government authorities to try and obtain information. Just be careful. Be secure and be careful. I mean, that's I suppose it's the biggest thing now. We really are a hacked society, and we really just need to make sure we're all protected, and we have current antivirus. We have the right infrastructures at our businesses to be able to handle and protect us while we work.
So is there any tips and advice that you and the broader Victorian Chamber community would like our Geelong businesses to take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think the three main tips, it's already been said. I mean, number one, keep communicating with your staff, keep working with your staff to try and find, some creative, flexible solutions for the immediate, medium and long-term future. Keep checking the Victorian Chamber website and the Geelong Chamber of Commerce website, because, information's going up there on a daily basis, as well as the Department of Health website. And, if you're a member of the Geelong Chamber, or if you're a member of the Victorian Chamber, and you do have any other questions about what to do if employees are sick or unwell, utilise your memberships and seek the advice, because, now more than ever, it's important that you get it right.
What tips have you got, Amir?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from here is it's extremely important to plan in advance. So plan for your business continuity. And even if you think you're a manufacturing business, retail business, and optometrist, even if you think that you won't be able to work completely remotely or online, it's extremely important to identify your activities, audit those activities, see which can be done online, which can't be done online, measure your risk, and then the one that can be done online, plan for that in advance. So I would just put a bit of shameful plug in here. We have developed this 5-step action plan. We are just running free webinars specifically through these activities. There's no sell at the end. We are just trying to help businesses through that. So you can jump up on our website, and I'll probably post the link over here and access the full tool and resources to implement this in your business.
And Amir, do you mind just recapping some of those programs such as Slack and Microsoft Teams that are helping people work remotely?
Sure, absolutely. So we are looking in the 4 areas. The first one is communication, and with communication, when I talk about communication, you need a tool that allows you to chat one-on-one, but allow you to create groups, say for your marketing team and sales team, and a group for your clients and projects all together. So Slack actually started this concept, but then Zoho Click has got that. It's a cheaper version of Slack. Microsoft Teams have got that. I think Google has got their own team as well. So if you're using a Google Suite or Microsoft Office 365, use the bundle that you can get through that, or probably look for a bundle that you would get with something like Zoho that would give you the full suite. The second is the meeting. We all know sort of Zoom and Skype and things like that. Again, if you're using Microsoft, then you can go with Microsoft Teams. If you're using Google as your G Suite, you can use Google Hangouts. Otherwise, there are a lot of options that are available out there. But the things that you need to be looking is something that allows for multiple people to join video chat. The second thing is that you should be able to record your meetings, which is probably important from the note-taking perspective. The third is the project management tools. And as Rachel mentioned, she's using Trello, extremely simple tool. I would encourage you to look at Asana as well. Again, very simple. But project management can vary from your own requirements as well. So you can do a bit more research, but something that allows you to allocate tasks, something that allows you to assign tasks and track and get reports out of that. And the fourth and extremely important is a documentation management system to put all your information online. So if you already have a Microsoft Office account, you could use Microsoft OneDrive. If you are using G Suite, you can use Google Drive. If your documents are already on Dropbox, you can use that. But if you still have like a file or folder structure, then I would encourage you to look at either Google Drive or Dropbox. Again, 2 things: the capacity of it. You need to look at what are you paying for the capacity, and secondly, it needs to be able to sync to your desktop. And third is the access control. Your file needs to be secure. You're not sharing it. Sort of, they need to be access controlled properly.
Very, very good. Now, Rachel, any of your final tips on how to work home remotely and how to manage teams in a really dynamic, changing environment?
Yeah, well, look, just to echo what Thomas was saying, I think it's all about communication. So for us, start of the day, end of the day, team check-ins, but also individually checking in with each, staff member as well on a professional level, but also on a personal level. Because as I was saying, I'm finding that, there is a little bit of misinformation out there, and some people that really, just might want to vent from a personal level too. Other ways to, I suppose, keep them inspired and motivated. Sharing daily productivity hacks is pretty cool. So different tips or challenges that then we can share the results on afterwards. TED Talks, there's actually some really good TED Talks online as well. These are about working remotely. So here we can share links, summarize points and talk to teams about that. For me, really for productivity, some people will find that they will just work all day, with no interruptions, work all day and potentially offer burnout. So from my mind, it's scheduling 45 to 90 minute sprints, then taking a break and coming back. And so the guys are actually, for those that are really, really hardworking, it's making sure that they're, sort of come out of it happy and healthy as well. For our clients, key communication for us there is just people have got a lot of time on their hands at the moment. So people are doing a lot more research. They are using the internet a lot more than they ever have before. So, how are you driving people to your site? How are people actually finding you once they're online? And is your website actually giving them what you want them to find at this time? So, I think it all comes down to, communication and being able to, I suppose, control the narrative.
Very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we might leave it there. Just to introduce our panellists again: Nick Klein from LBW Business and Wealth Advisors, Dr. John Stekelenburg, Cameron McBurney, the owner of Xtreme Technology, Rachel Patterson from K-Rock and Bay FM, Tom Page from the Victorian Chamber, and Amir Qutub from Enterprise Monkey. I'd like to thank you all so much for being with us, and thank you to all of our participants, and I look forward to our next webinar next Thursday at around the same time, but we'll send out more information. Thank you very much.